All right. Welcome in once again to the Belly Up Fantasy Live Baseball Special. And of course, I'm Kevin, and we are joined after a 1 week absence by Vince. We're very glad to have him back. So, Vince, how we doing tonight?
Man, I'm doing great. Doing excellent, actually. Good to be back. Sorry I missed out last week, but excited to talk some fantasy baseball tonight.
Yes. Yeah. And we certainly have a lot to talk about. And there's the NBA's got their play-ins, and hockey's got their playoffs, but don't turn your back on baseball because there's a lot going on. And we're going to start today because there is controversy in Major League Baseball. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set this up a little bit, Vince.
All right.
And what we have here, the controversy is, believe it or not, that a hitter was in the batter's box, got a pitch, and he hit the pitch. That's right. He hit the pitch, and now we have a full-blown controversy. So I'm going to go ahead and let's set up the backdrop. The other couple nights ago, Monday night, the Twins and the White Sox were playing each other, and the White Sox were beating the Twins. It was something like 100-2 at the time. It was the ninth inning, and they had a position player on there, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce this dude's name, but he's the backup catcher, and I guess he plays first base for Minnesota, and he was in there, and he threw a pitch to Yerman Mercedes, and I don't know if you saw this, Vince, but since 2008, it was the slowest pitch that has ever been tracked in the history of baseball. So what happened was Mercedes hit it to the moon. So, and then you have all these guys coming out of the closet, unwritten rules of baseball and everything else, and you're not supposed to swing at 3-0, and when you're up by, more than 10 runs, I guess, so. And as a matter of fact, I saw yesterday at something that was like 550 pitches had been thrown 3-0 up by 10 runs, and he was the first one that had swung at any of them. So, Vince, what is your take on this controversy?
All right. So I can kind of go on either side of it. First of all, Yerman Mercedes, he is playing on a $500,000 contract right now. And
right.
His numbers, the more he boosts his numbers, the higher he's going to get paid at the end of this season. So right. I don't fault him for this. The unwritten rules, there's a lot of really stupid ones in baseball. But at the same time, I kind of understand the idea. If you got a position player batting, in my opinion, the team that's down should just forfeit and walk off the field. Well, why waste pitchers? Why waste, arms, stuff like that? Just go ahead and leave. Just say, we're done, and pack it up and leave. Because at that point, you're not going to win. But at the same time, you kind of, when you talk about sportsmanship, there's not a lot of sportsmanship anymore in sports. It doesn't seem like. It's very much an look at me, what I can do kind of a thing. And, it makes sense to be a little bit kind of like, come on, man. What did you have to do that for? Like, can't you just, what I think they should do, I was been thinking about this. They should walk the batter so that they don't have to strike out. And then they should throw them out at first, caught stealing, supposedly, pick them off at first base, and just get 3 outs that way and go on to the next. That way, no one is really hurting their stats at all. They get on base, and nobody scores. So that's one way to go about it. Listen, I am not a Trevor Bauer fan in any way, shape, or form. I haven't liked him. Yeah. And he comes out and he says, and he said this consistently this year, and it's made me like him a little bit. He said, listen, if someone's batting and I'm pitching and they hit a home run on me, it is what it is. It's no big deal. We move on to the next one, kind of a deal. So I honestly do see it both ways. I understand. Listen, we got a position player who hasn't pitched probably since middle school or high school, and the game's over. Just let it rest. But can you blame a guy, especially a guy that is trying to earn a big contract for the first time in his life? Can you blame him for padding those stats a little bit? No, I don't think so. I think it's just one you just got to move on with. It happened. Let it go. Move on to the next one.
Well, that would be all well and good, except, the Twins didn't move on. The next day, they threw, behind him.
Yeah.
And even his manager, Tony La Russa, came out and said the guy was, the batter was wrong and he shouldn't have done what he did. And I understand the Twins coming after him. It's like, come on, Tony, what kind of backing up are you doing of your own players? Even if you do feel that way, you need to keep that in your shirt pocket, to me.
Tony La Russa needs to be done in baseball.
He does.
In my opinion. And,
I agree.
Listen, if the deal is you hit a home run on us, so we're going to bean you, then okay, whatever.
10 years old,
right? It's one of those things where, listen, if we're gonna, the hit by pitch, and I think we're gonna talk about that in a minute. The way it's used nowadays, it kind of needs to be gone with for the most part. There's still a time and a place for it. This is not one of them. This is petty. This is, let's move past this and be done with it. There are other times where I think it is deserving. I think, hey, an eye for an eye, so to say. Go ahead and hit a guy, proving a point, whatever it may be. But if you're going to prove a point, you need to make sure your point's worth proving. And this time it was not.
No, and I agree with that 100%. And, the reason why a lot of these rules aren't written down is because if you did write them down, people would realize just how stupid they are. And so I think baseball, for a sport that's 20 years now, of the official, ball. Come on, we got to grow up, man. We really do. And so, you mentioned it, Vince, about hitters getting just plunked. And this comes up, of course, because I'm sure you saw the video the other day of the New York Met who was hit in the face by a 94-mile-an-hour fastball.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit different than what we were just talking about, because clearly you're not throwing 94 miles an hour at somebody's head.
Right.
So, and Vince, we talked last week about if there was a hitting problem in the major leagues. It seems like there's a hitting and a pitching problem.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean,
would you not agree with it?
It's baseball has room to improve in a number of ways. And one thing is being the top of your game. And you got so many players in baseball, so it stands out. I think the level disparity stands out a little bit more. But if you're going to be a Major League Baseball pitcher, you ought to be able to throw the ball over the plate more times than not. And some of these pitches getting away, it makes you wonder, should that guy even be in the majors? And why is he in the majors?
Well, yeah, I think you hit on it there, Vince. There are a lot of pitchers, because there are 30 major league teams. There are a lot of pitchers in the big leagues that obviously shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And so, it is what it is. And every week that we come on, Vince, we're talking about no hitters. And we had one just the other day. And if you out there was thinking to yourself, hey, the next no-hitter is going to be pitched by a guy by the name of Spencer for the Detroit Tigers, raise your hand right now. Okay, I'm looking out there. I don't see anybody raising their hand. So that's the fifth no-hitter. And it's the first time since 1917 that we've had 5 no-hitters by this point in the season. And I think the total, if this continues, is something like 17 no-hitters in one season. So what do we say about this, Vince?
You're seeing it in other sports, the idea of load management. And I don't think the teams are doing this in baseball yet, but you're seeing a lot of these star players sitting out. And, you're going to have nights where the batting ability is just not there. Or, on a bad night, you got 9 guys who can't hit. That's just the way it works. And, right. And a pitcher gets hot. He's having his location's good. I didn't watch that game, so I don't know. Maybe the officiating, the umpires helping him out a little bit too, here and there, get a few extra calls that maybe you wouldn't have got on any other night. So, everything has to fall into place to get a no-hitter. Your defense has to be good. And And at times it comes together. I'm all for no-hitters. Let them come. Keep them coming. To me, a no-hitter is a lot more entertaining than a 3-hitter. So if we're going to have a few hits, let's make sure it's 0, and we'll be fine with it.
Okay. So those are the topics that are right at the top of the headlines.
Kevin, let me,
sure.
Since we are a fantasy baseball show, what do you think happened the moment after that no-hitter was thrown? Trade offers began to fall into my email from a guy who picked up Turnbull just to get the starting pitcher. He throws a no-hitter. The guy immediately starts sending me trade requests, offering me Turnbull for Trevor Rogers from Miami.
That'll be a negative.
Yeah. And I was like, listen, pal, let's not do this.
Right. If you happen to, because he's obviously on the waiver wire in just about every league throughout the land, and if you happen to pick him up and start him, and I saw that was 39 fantasy points for you, so yay for you.
Yeah,
but no one is going to have Spencer Turnbull on their roster for the entire season.
No.
So, if you're feeling froggy and you want him on, this next start will probably be Monday.
Yeah,
and
against
if you
Cleveland.
Want to have him on your team and see how he does on Monday, that's great.
But don't offer him for a top pitcher this season.
Exactly. So, one of the things that we have to keep on talking about, Vince, is the injuries throughout the land. And of course, the news came out that Mike Trout is going to be out probably 6 to 8 weeks. And I don't know if you saw the play. All he was doing was running from second base to third. He wasn't sliding. He wasn't diving for a ball in the outfield or any of that. He was just running, and it wasn't that fast either. So
that's why I don't run.
That's unfortunate because this guy, me too. So, if I want to exercise, I'll hit the pool. So that's just me. But he's out now 6 to 8 weeks. And if you're a New York fan, like our other co-host who unfortunately couldn't be here so far, he might join us later. Vince, he is a big fan of the Yankees, and New York is having all kinds of issues. Stanton's now on the injured list. I know that's a shock to people out there. And one of the good news, though, Vince, is that Gleyber Torres, the shortstop for the Yankees, he has been activated. And I don't know if you heard the story, but this is a guy who had the virus, who was vaccinated for the virus, and somehow came up with the virus once again, or he tested positive in any case. But the good news is he's back. He's in Texas as we speak, and he's back in their lineup. So that's great news there. Any players you want to highlight on the injury front?
One thing that's amazing about the Yankees is with all the injuries they've had, they're still only a game and a half out. I mean, they're 23-19 or over 500. They're 7-3 in their last 10. The Blue Jays are finally starting to play like we expected them to. Boston's going to come back down. Tampa's gotten hot as well.
Yeah,
but the Yankees are still right there, even with all these injuries. And Judge is playing like the Judge that everyone hoped he would be. Stanton still has his days. And now they're talking about possibly adding Joey Gallo. So, I mean, there's not going to be a lack of offense if they're healthy. That's for sure.
That's for sure. And you talked about the whole AL East minus Baltimore. There's only a game and a half separating the top 4 teams. So that's going to be really, really, really interesting to see that as it unfolds. And as you mentioned, Vince, can Boston hold? I'm not too sure on that one because we've already seen some of the teams that Kansas City has folded their tents.
Yeah,
Cleveland rised a little bit. Now they're folded their tents a little bit. So teams like the White Sox. What's your take on them?
I like the White Sox. I like the talent they have. They're actually, I'm not sure what their schedule has been, but they've got a plus 73 run differential right now, which is incredible. 7-3 over their last 10, sitting at over 600. I like them. Can Cleveland kind of come around and really compete. Minnesota sure doesn't look like they're going to this year.
No, I had high hopes for Minnesota.
Yeah.
And it had just not worked out. So,
I mean, if nothing else, who's going to really compete with Chicago? It's going to be Cleveland. But if that's all you got to worry about, I mean, I think Chicago's a playoff team.
Yeah, as long as I guess if they get out of their own heads, they'd be all right. So, one of the other points I wanted to mention is, of course, Albert Pujols is on my LA Dodgers. And his first game, base hit, RBI. But my reaction when I first heard that is, why?
Well, were you asking why for the Dodgers or why for
the Dodgers?
Okay.
Not why for Pujols, because obviously they can, they'll give him money, so I'm okay with that. But he's not particularly, a good first baseman, and I just don't see how that's a fit for them. I know they've got like 75 players on the injured list and stuff, but there's got to be a player that they could have went after other than him.
So I like it for this reason. They've got a pretty deep roster when they're healthy, of course. And I think what Albert brings to the locker room or to the dugout is something that you're not going to get in very many other players. And so when you have a team that is as good as they are, as talented as they are, they don't really have any major holes, especially when they get healthy. This is a kind of a luxury pickup for them. The one thing that's strange is that they don't have a designated hitter. So there's not a regular role for him to fit into. So as far as the playing goes, I can see why you question it with LA, but I think this is a little bit deeper than that. I think this is more of having a guy in the dugout that's kind of a coach / player that can really help guys. They've got some immaturity issues in that dugout. So he's a guy that can kind of bring some stability and some help and maybe help them get that side of things, help them get to another World Series.
Yeah, you've got a point there, but the question has to be asked: once the Dodgers return to health, do they keep Albert Pujols on their roster the entire season?
Right.
Where do you can't stash him anywhere?
No, and
he's never been a pinch hitter.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Who loses out if Pujols stays on the roster? That's going to be interesting to see how they manage it. At the face of it all, I like it. I do question why he didn't go to a team where he could play a regular role. But hey, he gets to stay in LA. He doesn't have to sell his house, and good chance he's going to get a World Series out of it too. So good move for him.
One thing that was clear to me is he wasn't going back to St. Louis. So
yeah,
the people were like, "Yay, come back to St. Louis," but they have no place for him. That's for sure. They got a Gold Glove first baseman going on right now, Paul Goldschmidt. So
yeah, it only made sense for him to go somewhere he could just DH the whole time, but that's not what he did. And I don't know what teams that are going to be in contention really had spots for Albert Pujols to come in and play a role anyhow. So I think it's probably the best thing for him for sure. And if he can find a niche to stick around when they're healthy and not get cut, well, good for him.
Yep, I agree with that. And so before we turn to the world of fantasy baseball, you weren't here last week, Vince, but we had breaking news, and we have that again today. And this important public service announcement is brought to you by Manscaped.com. This is your public service announcement and the news that you've all been waiting for. The Manscaped engineering team has confirmed that they have successfully created the Lawnmower 4.0. Is that a great name or what? Which is now available for purchase in the USA and Canada. This new trimmer was just released only moments ago, and we are one of the first to get our hands on it and share the news. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code. And we all know what that code is. It's BellyUpFantasy at Manscaped.com. What makes this trimmer different than all other trimmers? A new multifunction on-off switch can engage a travel lock created for people who like to travel. The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. The new trimmer even allows you to customize your trim all the way through additional guard links with sizes 1 through 4. And looks-wise, it's sleek with a two-tone matte and gloss finish that even features a hot foil stamped black chrome Manscaped logo. Show that mower off loud and proud. The Optimized Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer is waterproof so you can groom in the shower and not have to worry about making a mess in the bathroom. Use promo code BELLYUPFANTASY for 20% off and free shipping. All right, Vince. So turning to the world of fantasy baseball, there are some players that I'm thinking that we need to discuss. Is it time to drop or is it time to hold? And the player that's we've talked about Cincinnati Reds, pretty much, we touched on that a few times, and one of the players I was really high on coming into the season was Eugenio Suarez because he qualified at shortstop. Well, you're getting a 162 batting average out of that deal. So if you're sitting there and you've got Eugenio Suarez, do you drop or do you hold?
In most cases, I'm saying you drop them. Of course, some of this depends on your league and everything like that, and you got to figure out how much depth you got and those sort of things. If you're in a super big league, a 12, 14-team league, you're probably going to hang on to them and hope that things come around. 21 RBIs is not horrible, but he's not giving you what you wanted out of him. That's for sure. He's still 90% rostered. Right. Actually, that's gone up a little bit this week, at least in ESPN leagues. It's gone up a little bit.
It's unimaginable to me that it went up.
Well, in the last 7 days, he's got 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 14 total bases. He's batting .207. So if all you're looking for is home runs and RBIs, the last 7 days, he's actually done okay. But, that's why I think if you're in a deep enough league, you hold on to him. Or, again, you look to move him. You try to find a Reds fan. But he's played Colorado. They played Colorado and San Francisco. So you got to take that into effect as well as who they're playing and kind of do your research before you drop anybody. Look at who they've played. Look at who they're playing next. Absolutely. Those kinds of things. It takes work to win fantasy baseball. It
does. And you mentioned the opponent. Of course, the Giants, everything that they've touched this year has turned to gold for them.
Mm-hmm.
Their pitchers, their hitters. So maybe doing poorly against the Giants is not a reason to cut them loose. But here we are. It's past the middle of April I can't talk May. So the decision time is coming with him.
Yeah.
So you can't let him drag down your roster the whole season. And another couple players are in Chicago. I'm talking about Jason Hayward, who's hitting 187, and Ian Happ, he's hitting 188. I think the time has come. You jettison those guys, don't you think, Vince?
I have a little bit more faith in Ian Happ than I do Jason Hayward. I'm not a Jason Hayward fan, but I haven't had him on my roster for years now. But his role that he plays in Chicago isn't the same as what it was at one time either. So I don't think Hayward's worth having on any roster right now.
Yeah, Ian Happ, got a right-hander on the mound, he's not going to play.
Yeah, and Ian Happ, I've got a little bit more faith that he can come around and do something. Actually, again, in the last week, he's actually done well. He's hitting .333 in the last 7 days, 3 RBIs, 2 home runs. So there's a little bit of hope there. He's a guy I would definitely, at the very least, keep an eye on. But he just came off a series with Detroit and Washington, and so I have faith that Happ. I would hold on to Happ personally. But Hayward, no, he doesn't deserve to be on a roster right now.
Yep. So, and if you're talking about catchers, there's a couple of guys. One of them happens to be Minnesota, and that's Garver. He's hitting 198, and I believe he's having injury issues right now.
Yeah.
There's got to be a better catcher, even though that we're talking about catchers, and there aren't many out there. But there's got to be somebody better out there that you can roster than him.
And there is, because I've had him and I've dropped him. I've done both with Garver. I've had him for a little bit while I had some injury issues, and then I just kept watching to see who was there and who was hot, who was doing better. Catchers, if you don't have a top-tier catcher, you need to be changing catchers pretty regularly. Just taking the hot hand, going with it, and doing your best in that case. Because I like Garver. I think there's still potential for him to come around eventually. You need to keep an eye on him, but right now the way he's playing, it's not pretty. You need to move on from him.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm fortunate because on my team I have Molina, so he's a guy that's going to be in my lineup 5 days a week. So even when he's not in the lineup, I'm not making any moves with him. But as we know, catcher, that's it's a minefield.
Yeah.
So, but Garver, he's a mine to me. So I'm moving on from him. And we're talking about Cincinnati, and one of the players I'd like to mention to you is Luis Castillo.
One of my coworkers this morning, the first thing he said to me was, I just finally cut Castillo. He said, I just couldn't do it anymore. He's got a 7.44 ERA.
I see that right here. And that's one of the things I saw. I saw this, there was a discussion that was going on Reddit just today about him. And this guy was trying to talk him up because he struck out 11 yesterday. And that's all well and good, but every other stat that he had was in the toilet.
Yeah.
So, what are you going to do with he's 1-6.
1-6.
1-6, 7.44 ERA, and he's owned in 81.81% of leagues. Maybe you can sell him on the name, but if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, wouldn't you like to trade for Castillo?" That's a hard pass for me.
It depends on what I'm giving up, but probably not. Yeah.
Yeah. So any players that you're contemplating out there dropping?
Yeah. So I've got one that I think is definitely a drop, but I'll ask you anyways. Eduardo Escobar in Arizona. He had a couple weeks there where he was really helping me out, but since then he's kind of dropped off. He's still owned by 80% in ESPN leagues. He's batting .216. He's got 28 RBIs, 9 home runs. Like I said, early on in the season, he was actually doing pretty solid. That's why I picked him up. In the last 2 weeks, he's batting .164. So it was time, I think, to cut bait with him.
164.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
That's hard to overlook a 164 batting average. The homers and the RBIs are nice. And it seems like that's indicative of the entire Arizona Diamondback roster. Because a little while ago, they were playing pretty well, but it seems like they have just slammed it in reverse of late. And a lot of that, of course, they're playing the Dodgers right now. So,
yeah,
I would not hesitate to. There's got to be a better player out there that he's got multi-position eligibility, but still, if you don't hit, you sit.
Yep. The other guy I've got that I have not dropped yet, but I'm trying to figure out if I should, is Alex Baum from Philadelphia.
That's another one. Yep.
As on the season, he's batting .229. He's got 23 RBIs, 4 homers. Now that's not horrible. It could definitely be worse. As of late, he's kind of almost in every other game, having a good game and then having a blah game and then having a good game and back and forth with it. So I haven't just cut him yet. In the last week, he's only got 3 RBIs, but he is batting .269. He's got a stolen base as well. So he gives me a little bit here and there, a little bit of hope, and I don't want to drop him and then all of a sudden he goes nuts. But I feel like he's a guy that I need to at least consider letting go of, and at least for a little while and seeing if he gets it together. What do you think about Alec Baum?
Yeah, I think that I might give him a little extra time. He was on my roster last year, and he played pretty well, during that about a month stretch down to, in September. So maybe, because the Washington Nationals are another team that have really been snake bit so far this year. And so maybe he can get it together. I'm talking about Washington Nationals. Yeah. So this is Philadelphia we're trying to get into right here. So, but so Philadelphia, a lot of people thought that they were going to do something this year, and it just hasn't happened. And so I'd give him a little time and see, maybe Memorial Days in about 10 days from now. And so I might hold on to him till then and then see where things go.
I like it. I've been him and Riley from Atlanta are the two third basemen that I've kind
I
of
had
been.
Riley. I drafted him, during my draft. I've cut him a long time ago, and he's a young player,
Yeah.
and you'd like him to do well, but it just hasn't happened. And I've dropped him, and I haven't really regretted it. So
Not missing much.
no, not missing much at all. And one of the reasons why I'm not missing him is because, and we're going to talk about some pickups right now. And one of the top guys that we talked about Arizona, but Josh Fuentes from Colorado, he has really turned it on.
Yes.
And so he plays first base, he plays third base. He has a 7-game hitting streak entering today's play. I know they played earlier today. I don't know if he got a hit or not, but he's owned in only 25% of leagues. And I picked him up myself, and I couldn't be more than thrilled to have him.
Yeah, so he was on my list as well. And you're right. He's multi-position. He's a batter that plays in Colorado, which means, hey, you got to keep an eye on this because when he's at home, there are going to be some easy shots for him there as well.
Yeah, and maybe not so much on the road because the entire Colorado team just goes to sleep when they're on the road. That's been kind of the case throughout their history, but this year it's really terrible.
In his last 29 at bats, he's batting .483.
That's what I'm talking about. So if you've got, any roster moves that you need to make, even though I know he doesn't play tomorrow, but get him, get him.
Yeah,
and,
his on-base percentage in the last week's 500. His slugging percentage is 897. That's just in the last 7 days. But
897, that's through the roof.
Yeah,
right there.
At the very least, pick him up now. Yeah, at least pick him up now and ride it till it dies.
Yep, that's the way I'm looking at it. And if we're going to talk about some pitchers, Detroit, Casey Mize. We talked about Spencer a little bit earlier, but this guy is a guy that if I was to pick one of the two of them, I'd go with him. He's 26% owned out there. He's pitched into the 6th inning in his last 4 starts. He's given up 3 hits in each of his last 3 starts. That's all he's given up is 3 hits. So this is a guy that's throwing the ball right now. And so if you need a pitcher, he's a guy that I would look at seriously. And another one is Chris Flixon from the Mariners. There's not a whole lot of Mariners I would take a whole lot of look at right here. But this guy, he's 4-1. He has a 3.46 ERA. And he's pitched in the 6th inning 4 of his last 5 starts, and he's only owned in 11% of leagues. So, and he qualifies, if your team has to have relief pitchers, he's a starting and relief pitcher. My league is not set up that way, but if somebody's looking for a relief pitcher, he's a guy I would look at right there. So
I got another pitcher, Rich Hill in Tampa.
Rich Hill.
Yeah, his last 2 starts, he's pitched 12.2 innings. He has 13 strikeouts and a 0 ERA. He's coming on here, and now's the time to get him. Why not jump on that while it's hot as well? If you look at his season stats, it's not great, but if you look at the last 2 week stats, you can see some improvement.
Yep, I agree with that. And matter of fact, Vince, I just picked him up today for his start for tomorrow.
Yep, I did the same thing.
I have Kenta Maeda. That's the guy that we could have talked about earlier. Do we keep or do we drop? And he's not even. Hey, there's my cat behind me. But he's supposed to start Friday, but I'm not buying into him anymore. So I dropped him and picked up Rich Hill. I think that's going to be a good pickup for me. And if I'm convinced that I could pick him back up Friday before he starts.
I had to drop Huascar Yanoa from Atlanta, who's on the injured list right now.
That was a subject that we could have talked about at the top of, baseball, because he's out there punching benches.
Yeah.
So if there's a pitcher that deserves to be off fantasy rosters, I would say that's him right there. So
I do have another position player for you
sure.
as well.
Far away.
Josh Rojas from Arizona. He qualifies as a second baseman, a shortstop, and an outfielder. He's only owned by 68.5% of teams right now. And he's another one of those guys who at the moment is really having a great time. He's getting regular playing time, and he's making a difference in Arizona right now. So he's got, I'm looking more at recent stats, but in the last 15 days, 340 is his batting average, 25 total bases, not a lot of RBIs. So you're going to, it depends on what you're looking for, but he's got 9 runs to go with that 340 batting average. He's a guy to watch for, and he gives you that flexibility, second base, shortstop, or outfield. You can kind of fit him into a few different spots in your team just to fill a void for a short time.
One last player I want to throw out there to you, Vince, is Harrison Bader from the St. Louis Cardinals, outfielder. He's only owned in 24% of leagues. And he has hits in 8 of his last 10 games and 10 of his last 13. How much hotter can you be?
Not much.
Not much at all. So if you have any kind of outfield issues and all the injuries that we've talked about, if your team has any kind of problems in your outfield, get him. I don't have any issues with my outfielders right now, so I didn't make a move on him. But if I did, I would and move forward, and I'd be happy about it.
How many guys on your fantasy team that are currently on your roster did you pick up? You didn't draft them. There were guys you picked up on your waiver wire.
I got my roster right here, so I can answer that question for you.
Okay.
Let's see. I picked up 4, 5, 6, 7. That's just position players. And over here on my pitchers, I pretty much stayed pretty even Steven on my pitching.
Yeah.
Except, like I said, I moved Kenta Maeda. I just did that today. And I might have to make a decision. And we're talking about players. Sean Manaea. He is stunk up. We're talking talking about a player that's in the outhouse. He's
so in one of my leagues, Manaea and Maeda were traded in the same trade. I think they were on opposite teams and they flip-flopped, but they were in the same trade that was recently just went through in one of my leagues as well. But I'm with you. I have 10 guys currently on my roster that I did not draft that I've picked up, and of course got a lot more moves than that I've done.
Me too, and I'm one of those guys that when I'm doing fantasy baseball, I just don't sit around. I make moves. I do it on a regular basis, and that's one of the things that makes fantasy baseball. Because we're talking a 6-month. You got to put this 6 months it takes to do this. So, there are players that are out there and they give up after the first 6 weeks or whatever. I'm not one of those guys. And so if you're going to come at me, you're going to know you're going to get what I believe. And I don't just make moves just to make moves to have fun with it. There's always a reasoning behind it. And so
I'm in 3 leagues, the 2 leagues that were easy to look up. One league I have 37 acquisitions, and the other league I have 23 acquisitions. And that's just trying to find whoever's hot and get rid of whoever's not.
When I last looked, I had 41 transactions. So, these 7 players, aren't the 7 players that I added after week 2.
Right.
You know what I mean? So these are the guys that get churned around. So, and speaking of, when we're talking about fantasy, and one of the subjects I know you wanted to get into, Vince, was the trade analysis devices. So I'm going to turn that over to you, Vince, and hear what you just have to say about this.
All right. So, Kevin, I just joined a league this year. Great guys. I don't know any of them personally. We've met through the draft. We did a video chat during the draft. We are all in ministry, so I'm a pastor, and so I'm in this league with other pastors or missionaries and stuff like that. And so good guys, all right. But they send me these trade offers, and I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm not stupid. Why would I take that? And then they respond with a picture of a trade analyzer that tells me you win this trade. And I said, wait, if I'm winning the trade, then why are you offering it to me? That doesn't, that's not how you're supposed to do this. And I said, it's clearly I do not win this trade. So I'm trying to figure out, are trade analyzers, do they have some out there that are meant to help you fool people? Because I'm sitting there, I got this.
Maybe it is.
I got this one. I want you tell me who wins the trade. Okay.
Okay.
It's a 2-for-3 offer. The two players on Team A is Nelson Cruz and Charlie Morton. They were the three people they were asking for in return: Carlos Correa, Austin Riley, Freddie Peralta.
No.
So I'm the one that has Correa, Riley, and Peralta. I was offered Cruz and Morton, and I was sent a screenshot of the trade analyzer to prove that I won the trade if I accepted this trade offer. And, Freddie Peralta, according to the trade analyzer, was the worst player in the trade. And the guy is lighting it up right now.
Okay. So, I don't know, because, one of those guys that are out there that are computer geniuses, which I'm not one, you could set up, an algorithm to make things look like something that they're not.
Yeah.
But even if it was a legitimate, and I've never used a trade analyzer in baseball. I have done it in some of the fantasy football and stuff where I'm a little less experienced in. But even if let's say that everything is even Steven from the trade analyzer, you also have to do your own research. You have to take into account who's on your roster.
Yeah.
Does this move help you? If I only have 2 first basemen and I trade one of them, for let's say an outfielder and a third baseman, how does that help me?
Right.
The trade could be even, but it doesn't help me.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I
never had it. Well, not in baseball. I've had it happen in football where someone actually said, "Hey," they sent it to me.
Yeah.
Hey, even Steven here. So why don't we go ahead and make this trade? And I'm like, no, I don't think so.
So this guy reached out to me. He had said that Morton was available. So I go and look at him, and the guys that he wanted for my team, I said, no, Morton, he has not been good this year. No. And so he's not worth
last year either, for that matter.
Yeah. So he's not worth giving up the guys that they were wanting off of my roster. And so when he sent this trade back with the Nelson Cruz, his deal was, well, Nelson Cruz is good. So whatever. I'm like, well, yeah, but Correa, he's not great. I get that, but I'm not trading him for that. Yeah. Riley, sure, I'll give up Riley. I got no problem with that. But then Freddie Peralta, and I'm a Brewers fan. I do not trade away good Brewers. I'll trade away bad Brewers, but not good ones. Like if you want Lorenzo Cain, you can have him. But Freddie Peralta, Corbin Burns, Woodruff, you're not getting them from me. No matter what you offer me, it's just not happening. And Freddie Peralta, to the casual fan, he would go, okay, sure, yeah, Freddie Peralta, you can have him. But if you look at his stats, you're going, wait a second, he's one of the top pitchers out there right now. His stats are absolutely incredible for the year that he's having. And he's a guy that I had early on because I knew he was going to be good this year. Let's see, I'm pulling up his stats right now. Let's see here. His ERA is 2.4. He has 45 innings pitched, 69 strikeouts, and he's 4-1.
Okay, so I'm moving on from him, sure.
Yeah, I'm going to just let him go because the trade analyzer tells me he's worth $6.30 compared to Charlie Morton, who's worth $16.20. Come on.
But, yeah. So, kids, what we're saying here is there's no replacement.
Don't trust technology.
For doing your own research.
Don't let the dog eat your homework, man. You got to put it in. Yeah.
So before we discuss, our rosters in specifics, there's one last announcement we have, and that is Wall Street meets sports gambling in this innovative app. Symbol, SIMBULL, brings the fun of being able to play for the long term by purchasing, selling, and trading stocks of your teams. When your teams win, you win a payout. When you lose, you do not. The value of your team share is all that matters, and it's easy to use. Just download the Symbol app on your Play Store and use the promo code BellyUpFantasy for a $10 deposit bonus of at least $10 or more. Join the fun of investing in your team for the long haul, where the sportsbook edge is put back into your hands as the player. For the latest and most fun in sports gambling, download Symbol and again use the promo code once again BellyUpFantasy for your $10 deposit bonus today. So when I'm looking at my roster, Vince, like I said, the pitchers I'm doing pretty well. I took an L last week. I'm 4-2. I'm going up against this guy this week who's 6-0. So I got to bring it on this week. But when I look at my roster, I'm happy with what I have. I have players that play first base, third base, second base, third base. I got guys that play second, short, and third. So I've got some guys that I can move around because versatility is very important to me. And so I have that. One of the things I'm going to have to figure out is Mike Moustakas, because he's missed like 5 or 6 games in a row now. And he was playing pretty well. If he doesn't get back pretty soon, I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to – because he's day-to-day.
Yeah.
He's not on the injured list. If that was one thing, I could just move him over there. And so on the pitching side of it, I really did pretty well. I got Ian Anderson. I got Kevin Gossman, who just today, he's got to be one of my draft choices of the year. And when I think back about that guy, we're talking about trade analysis. The guy wanted me to trade Kevin Gossman for Rendon. That's a big time negative. And so short of Sean Manaea, I'm doing pretty well on my pitchers. I got Hugh Darvish. I got Aaron Nola. They highlight my staff. So I'm sitting pretty well right now. And so how's your roster? I have to say, how are your rosters doing? Because you've got 3.
Yeah. So I got 3 of them. All 3 won last week, which was a great week. And I'm starting to get to that point now where I'm really happy with the group of guys that I have, where I don't need to do a ton of movement now. It's more of just catching those guys that are falling off and replacing them with someone else. So in the one league I'm in, it's a deep league. It's 12 guys. And the pitching is different because there's no innings restrictions. So you can pitch as much as you want to. And it took me a little while to catch on to that. So my pitching staff was really weak to start the season, and I've been working hard to build it up. So here's who I have now pitching. Starting pitchers, I have Trevor Rogers from Miami, Woodruff from Milwaukee, Kyle Gibson, Texas, Dylan Cease.
I don't know about that one. So go ahead.
Dylan Cease from the White Sox.
Okay.
John Grant in St. Louis.
Okay.
Vince Velasquez from Philadelphia, who I just recently added for a start, basically. And I got Freddie Peralta as well. Then on the injured list, I got Zach Gallen, who I don't think he's coming back. Eliezer Hernandez for Miami. I'm looking forward to him returning. And Danny Duffy. And I picked up Danny Duffy. Let's see here. Velasquez hasn't been great. Grant, Cease, Gibson. I picked up all in free agency on there. And then I've got 2 closers, Rafael Montero, who's not been good. I need to get rid of him. And then Cesar Valdez from Baltimore, who's starting to drop off now too. But, so that was what it is.
If you need a relief pitcher, I would look into Ian Kennedy from the Texas Rangers. As I believe he has 10 saves on the season. So that's somebody I would look into. But, as you know, I'm the only team in the entire league that has 0 saves in my league. I have none. 0.
You just forfeit it, right? It's just automatically you're not going to get it.
No. So, it's a good thing I'm not in one of those, because it's not a cats league or anything like that. So
yeah,
I like where it's always at. So that's why I go with starters.
As a strategy, I've got if you're in a league that has an innings restriction for starters, but not for relief pitchers, one thing to watch out for is those guys who pitch on these not great teams, but they're pitching, 2 to 3 innings a night, coming in the fifth, doing the fifth, sixth, and seventh or something like that. If you're at the end of a week and you need to add something to you, it's worth taking a look to see who's out there for those. Although that value has definitely shifted. It seems like just 2 years ago, these guys were pitching all kinds of innings and they weren't starting. And now it's starting to cut back to, I think, what it used to be. You get the starter pitcher come out for 5 or 6, and then your bullpen takes over for an inning at a time, and you work through those guys. So you got to work hard to find them.
That's right, and it seems like they've done away with that. How they had a couple, the openings pitcher.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tampa Bay was the one that came up with that, and it doesn't seem like that's happening.
It's not, and it's because it didn't work. It's because it didn't work. So Tampa, you're right. They've gone away from it. I picked up just for today's start Luis Patino in Tampa, and he's a guy who last year was an opening pitch getter. He'd pitched the first inning or the first 2 innings, and every time that he's pitched now this season, he's actually doing more 3 to 4 innings pitching, and his last 2 starts were, I think, close to 5 innings. It was still under 5, but in that range. And, that's kind of the way they're going. Milwaukee did it when they had guys injured as well in past seasons under Counsell, but they've gone away from it now. It just doesn't work. Long term, it's not the answer. It can work for a game if you're in the playoffs and, you got a guy that just pitched 2 nights ago and you need his arm for a couple innings. Sure, go for it. But as far as getting through the season goes, nah, man, you gotta be getting these guys, these young guys, get them in your system, develop them, get them out there and pitch. I hate to see these programs. They've got organizations where they've got these young guys in the minors until they're 28, 29. Why? Let's go ahead and bring them up. We're pitching 35-year-olds that aren't that great anyhow. So let's bring the new guys in and give them a shot, see what they can do. That's my personal opinion.
Well, I have to agree with you on that one. And I'm not in a league that has an innings restriction, but I am in a league that has a starting pitcher restriction.
Oh.
So using one of those pitchers that only pitches 1 or 2 innings to start the game just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Definitely.
So fortunately, that's not happening too much in baseball anymore, so that's not really a concern. But even if it was, they wouldn't be on my team. So that's pretty much what we have in for fantasy. And I know there's a lot going on with you, Vince. And so where can we find you, and what do you got going on?
All right, so Twitter's the best place to follow me at Sports Stove on Twitter. I plan to have another episode drop. I'm going on vacation. I leave Friday. I haven't decided if I'm going to take my microphone with me or not, because there's some great stuff. I mean, NBA playoffs going on, the play-in games right now. Yep. NHL playoffs going on as well. Baseball always has something going on, and football, out of nowhere, there's going to be some kind of news. And I'm in Kentucky. The University of Louisville stuff dropped this week with major legal issues coming out again in Louisville. So I need to drop a new episode. So sometime this weekend, I'll drop a new episode talking about Louisville and all their issues in the university, NBA playoffs, and anything else that's interesting along the way too. So you can get that, the Sports Stove podcast, anywhere you get your podcast. We'd love for you to download, give us a listen, and let us know what you think.
That's always good. All those out there know from the Belly Up Fantasy website know that I have an article that comes out there every week. And you can find me on Twitter at Kevin62, WILSEA. And as Vince, you just mentioned, there's a lot going on in sports, and it's all covered by the Belly Up Fantasy Network. So get on there, check us out, and give us a like, give us a comment, and just shoot us a question, anything. And we will be more than happy to get on there. And I always say, I'm here to discuss. So join us. And it's always great to be with you, Vince. And that's all I got.
Yeah, I just want to add to what you said about Belly Up Sports, man. There's so much good stuff out there right now.
There is.
The hockey content that's getting put out right now is
coming out every single day. You got
it's phenomenal.
Slapshot Sweethearts. You got the Hardcourt Honeys. And they know what they're talking about, and that's the best thing about it. So whatever sport you're into, get on there.
Yeah.
Why
There's
not?
something for
Come
everybody.
along. So
And there really is something for everybody. I am a
There
lot
really is.
different than the other podcasts. Like there's some podcasts that's more my personality type, but there's other podcasts. If you go, well, this guy here, Vince, he's kind of boring. Okay, well, there are other people that are very different than me doing podcasts on the Belly Up Network. You can go find them. You can find people like me. Tons of great stuff. Make sure you go visit it, like Kevin said. And again, read Kevin's articles. They're out there. You can find them on Twitter, but they're on Belly Up Fantasy as well.
And so, like I said, I always like the comments, and people do bring some constructive questions, and I always appreciate that. And of course, there's always some doofuses out there that, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, maybe I don't, but I always put research. There's thought behind what I say. I just don't throw stuff out there. So we're out there. Come on, come and check us out. That's
last thing I'll say, Kevin, is I know this is a baseball podcast, but tonight the Lakers are getting ready to tip off for the play-in game. I just want to remind everybody, Michael Jordan never lost a play-in game. I just want to say that before the game starts tonight.
Okay, you heard it here first. So, all right. So till next time, you guys take it easy, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Have a good one.
All right.